Hey everyone, hope you are having a great day. It is beautiful outside. It's cold morning kind of, and at least for me, and then warmed up today. So just hope that you're being blessed today and that you can go out and bless someone else as well. Hey, want to continue sharing Paul's writings, and we are in Romans chapter 13. We're going to look at verses 8 through 10 and then verse 14. Paul's talked about in the first verses in chapter 13 of our need to follow the authority, the government, and to be obedient to them. And I want to continue that theme as he talks about loving one another and what that means when we love one another. So let's look at verses 8, 9, 10, and 14. Paul wrote, "Owe no one anything except to love each other. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. For the commandment, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment are summed up in this word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law." And then we jump to verse 14. Put on the Lord Jesus Christ, and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires. Now it's the great commandment. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's the call in our lives. That's the call for this world right now, as crazy as it is. How can we show love? And what Paul is getting at in the first verses, owe no one anything. Don't owe anything to anyone except owe them love. Owe them the experience of knowing what it is like to experience the power and the beauty and the grace and the strength of God's love. For if you love, you have fulfilled all of the law. What could be said against you? And that's why Paul says, for the commandments tell us, don't commit adultery, don't commit murder, don't steal, don't covet, don't do anything that's wrong in those commandments. And Paul adds, and I love the way he does this because he often does it, and any other commandment, which is lots of commandments. But it's all summed up in this word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And so he adds, love does no wrong. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. And so he says, put on Christ. That's a reference, if you go back to Colossians chapter 3, in verses 12, 13, and 14, Paul, it's just a great passage of what Paul says, that we'll get there sometime. But he says in Colossians 3, he says, put on love, which binds what he talks about 5 virtues prior to that. He says, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect harmony or perfect unity. And that's the goal. Put on love. Well, there's a real contingency, and I don't want to drag this out into a full-length 20, 25-minute sermon. But the point that I think is so important and that we miss is when Paul says, love your neighbor as yourself. It's implicit in what Paul is saying, in my opinion, that we have a healthy self-love. Not narcissism, but we love ourselves. We truly love ourselves, and we do it in a healthy way. And now we take that love and we give it to the world. But we look around us, and there are so many people who hate themselves. So many people who have grown up in dysfunctional, terrible families. And I'm not belittling any of that. But because of that, they don't know how to love. And they don't love themselves. And so if you don't love yourself, how can you love your neighbor? And that becomes really difficult. And sometimes you have to overcome it. Sometimes you have to be that real overcomer and change the family system and change the family pattern so that you don't perpetuate it. And that's not always easy to do, but it is possible. I know it's possible. So, the message from Paul for all of us: go into the world and show the world what love really looks like. Show them the love of Jesus Christ. Can you go out and do that? Can you love your neighbor, and your neighbor is everyone else in the world? God bless you and have a great night.